Welcome to the Bucher and Friends podcast, co-starring 10-year NFL veteran and Super Bowl champion, Will Blackmon.
Manning from the end zone. He throws, and a deflect away, and it is picked off by Will Blackmon, the former Giant.
Tim Dwight watches it hit, bounces, picks it up at the 10, slips a defender, fumbles the football, it's up for grabs, it's covered in the end zone by Will Blackmon for a Green Bay touchdown!
And now, here is your host,
Let's send it over to Rick Bucher.
Rick Bucher.
Welcome to another episode of Bucher and Blackmon, subsidiary of Bucher and Friends on the United WeCast Network. I'm Rick Bucher. He is multi-year NFL vet and Super Bowl champ Will Blackmon. There's a reason I always stumble on that. We'll explain. You can catch him on NFL Game Day Live Sundays on NFL Network and on Twitter at Will Blackmon. You can read my stuff on Bleacher Report and at Rick Bucher on Twitter. And you can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Bucher Friends. All right. So as for those who listen to the podcast for a while now, they know that there's a little discrepancy. The sound coming into the show says that Will is a 10-year vet, and he has corrected us that it's a 12-year vet. We're not going to have that sound remade.
I'm over it.
Yeah, and we are too. So that's why I always go multi-year.
Oh, wow.
By the way, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays.
Same to you, my friend.
Did you have a good Christmas?
We had a long week. We had Christmas, which was at our house. I refused to go anywhere.
Okay.
However, we did go to my wife Shauna's mother's house, the in-laws. They live like down the street. We went for dinner.
Okay.
So we had our Christmas in our house. We went to theirs, but I would never travel during the holidays. They want to see me. They know where to find me. But we also had two birthdays. Our son's birthday was Thursday the 27th, and our daughter's birthday was Saturday the 29th.
Oh.
So it was a busy week. No, there's no sighing. This was a great. It was a festive week. No,
that is
festive.
That's bad for them.
No, it's not
bad for you. It's
not
terrible.
bad for them.
No, it's terrible.
That's a festive week.
No, it's not. No, but here's the problem. So when you buy gifts, you got to hold back. You're not going all out on Christmas because you got birthdays right around the corner. So
you don't need to go all. You don't need to go all out when everyone's going to go all out for your kids. No, for Christmas we get a bunch of like cool stuff, but for their birthdays they get like a really big gift.
Right.
That's kind of how it is.
Okay.
So he got a bunch of like toys and some games, but for our son Ryder's birthday, he got a Jetson scooter, electric scooter.
Ooh.
It goes like 15 miles an hour. That thing's pretty nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dad going to be trying that out sometime?
No, my wife actually bought me an electric skateboard.
Oh.
And that thing goes about 25 miles an hour.
Nice. Very nice.
Yes.
Now, is it the single wheel or is it the remote control with the four wheels?
Remote control with the four wheels.
Oh, okay. Cool. You've seen the single wheel ones, right? With the big fat tire in the middle?
Yeah. I seen one of those.
Yeah, those are pretty cool too.
They
Good
look
for
sketchy.
you.
Those
Good
look
for you.
sketchy.
But here's my point. With Ryder and your daughter's name is Jade.
Jade. Yep.
It doesn't really suck for you as much as it does for them, because I guarantee you that they would be at Christmas, they would be getting all the gifts and they'd get one big gift. And then if their birthday was, say, in March or April, they would be getting a bunch of gifts and a big gift. It would be a two. Now it's a twofer. Now they will be compromised their entire childhoods. That's why I said, So moving on to the NFL. For you, the biggest surprise team that's in and the biggest surprise team that's out.
The biggest surprise team that is in are the Colts, by far. This was a team who came into the season still putting pieces together, still looking for, additions. And I was looking for this offseason coming up to be the offseason where Chris Ballard really gets all the skilled players he needs, maybe makes a couple more free agent splashes. Like, they're not ready yet.
They didn't have a quarterback who could throw the ball beyond 10 yards.
That's what we thought.
Well, no, but at the time, he wouldn't. He wouldn't.
Yeah, he wouldn't. That's what we thought. So that the huge surprise, starting 1-5 and then almost running the table. They fought every time their playoff chances were on the line. They showed up.
It is amazing. And I love the fact that Andrew Luck has made it all the way back, that even as early as I knew that they were on the right track, and this may be an oversimplification. When they drafted Quentin Nelson, I said, okay, thank you. Because you needed some semblance. You needed some place that Andrew Luck, when he dropped back, he goes, they're not coming through that gate.
Right. So my biggest disappointment that I'm surprised that they're not in the playoffs are the Vikings. Apparently, they were one quarterback away. So
you're talking about.
So they thought.
Yeah. I meant to do this before the show, and I apologize for not doing this, but I really wanted to look at the comparative numbers between Case Keenum and your man Kirk Cousins in Minnesota to see, and obviously, look, you're different teams, different situations, but I would think that the numbers would probably favor Kirk. You'd still say that the two comparably, Kirk had more weapons around him than Case did, right?
Well, yeah, and he had a Cook. They lost Cook last year.
Yeah.
I look at last year, what Case, and the games that they have won. So they beat the Saints on Monday night, okay, primetime game. And then, I'm looking at the primetime games. They beat the Bears on Monday night. Then they beat the Packers. Then they beat the Ravens. Then they beat the Redskins, Rams. I mean, they go on and on. They actually swept the Packers, which was a primetime game. The issue this year was they didn't win any of those games. Right now, Kirk is 4-25 versus teams with a winning record.
Oof.
I think he's 1-5 on primetime. But here's what Kirk is good at. It's just his overall, like the one stat you don't see is like games that matter.
Right.
It's funny because his numbers this year are identical to how they were when I was with him in 2015. He threw for 4,166 yards in 2015 and 29 touchdowns. This year, he threw for 4,166 yards, 29 touchdowns. But if you go through it, he threw for almost 4,900 yards, 25 touchdowns, 12 picks. 4,000 yards, 27 touchdowns, 13 picks. 4,100 yards, 29 touchdowns, 10 picks. Completion percentage, 69, 70, 64, 70. 67, 64, and 70. That's his thing. He's a good quarterback, but is he elite?
Right.
And no, because he's not winning the big games.
Right. And you're paying him elite money. And by the way, just looking at the numbers, like his numbers are better. His completion percentage is much higher than Keenum's. 70.7 to 60.
You mean for this year?
This year.
As they should, yeah.
And same with touchdowns to interceptions, 29-10 for Kirk, 17-14 for Case Keenum. I mean, you can go across the board. The numbers in every category are better. But it's a matter of, were they so much better that, and not just numbers, but performance, that you got the most out of what you paid for? And I can't help but say no, and I felt that way going in. I mean, I felt going in, he's not the guy that takes you over the threshold. He's not the difference maker.
Right. How much of a better quarterback is he than Case?
Exactly.
Like, it's almost damn near the same person. However, I think Case has I like Case's mental makeup when it matters. Like, when I look at the elite quarterbacks, say Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson. I mean, mentally, Russell's probably 1 and 2 with Tom Brady in terms of like their mental makeup of when it matters. Because there can be games where Russell may not have a great game statistically,
right? But
he has those key plays that win the game,
right?
Or that push in position to win the game. I looked at tonight and I put a tweet out saying like Blaine Gabbert, his pre-snap body language looked like he was going to throw an interception.
Right.
And he did. He walked up to the line, and I just looked at his face, and I'm like, dude, like you guys still have a chance. You can come back in 2 minutes. Like, it's possible. Like, your game still matters. Everything still counts. And he walked up to the line. He didn't pat anybody or on the back or motivate anybody, or he didn't have like that fight in his face. Like, hey man, like we have a chance to make this happen. And sure enough, he threw the ball right down the middle to Leonard and got picked off. Mm-hmm. Like a ball that shouldn't have been thrown, because it's the mental makeup. And that's what I'm curious about about Kirk. Like, what's his mental makeup? Like, is he out there just out there just getting good numbers and thinking that's good enough? It's like, nah, dude. When it matters, that's all people care about.
Yeah,
is when it matters.
Well, he's always struck me as a guy who's a consummate pro. It's one of those guys who I believe he gets the most out of what he has. That his dedication to the craft, the time that he puts in, like he puts in the time. His shortcomings are not out of a lack of effort or time spent.
Preparation, right.
Yeah, it's none of that. It's simply the ceiling on a guy's ability. And that's where I believe he has maximized who he is. I don't see another huge step for him as a quarterback. I don't see a tremendous amount, an opportunity for growth there. Some guys are just it's an oversimplification, but some guys are gamers, some guys aren't. Some guys in the crux of things when they break down can maintain their poise and contribute, and other guys it just gets too confused for them.
I get you. Yeah, that makes sense.
So, what really surprised me is was hearing reports that Mike Zimmer might step down. Did you hear any of that? What do you think of that? What do you make of that?
I didn't hear that, but it's almost like there's so much going on where he's probably like, I think he was going to step down, if hoping they were going to go there and win it this year,
and then step down.
If they were that close, they're so close,
and now they seem so far away.
They're not even in the playoffs. That's unbelievable to me.
You were right there.
Damn you, Bears.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, because I was fully engrossed in the Browns and the Ravens and the Bengals and the Steelers. And I literally had them side by side, and it was electric to watch the two because both came down to the wire. The Steelers eke it out with a field goal, and then you're thinking, wow. And then the Browns make a run down 26-24, and they're within range. 1st and 10, I think they needed 15, 20 yards to get into field goal range. Ultimately couldn't do it, and Baker Mayfield got picked. But I thought, wow, all of this may turn out to benefit. The Steelers may still find a way through the keyhole. The fact that they didn't, and that Le'Veon Bell was not there, and that Antonio Brown was not there for this game, how much of that is a alibi, excuse, rationale for them not being in the playoffs?
I mean, there's plenty of games they should have won. They had enough players and pieces in general to get it done. However, your best player is not there other than AB. AB wasn't there either today. So that was a huge difference too. But I don't know, it's interesting.
They did finish with the best record among teams that did not make the playoffs at 9-6-1. By the way, speaking of coaches that may be fired, I don't know if you saw the report from Jay Glazer. He had 7 coaches that he expects to be gone. Todd Bowles with the Jets.
Todd Bowles is gone.
Greg Williams, you would assume, right? Marvin Lewis with the Bengals. Vance Joseph with the Broncos. Joe Philbin with the Packers. We knew that. He was just a fill-in. Dirk Cutter with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's really no surprise. Steve Wilkes with the Cardinals. Again, probably not much of a surprise. Are there any there where you say, you know what? It's not a surprise, but it's a mistake. Like, that guy can coach. He was just in a bad situation.
I think Bowles.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, you just got your quarterback. It's hard to do that when you don't have like your guy. I think he at least deserved another year. However, you make these moves when you have somebody in mind. That's kind of what I see it with Todd Bowles. With this young quarterback, I'm sure they have somebody in mind who can come in there and get a coach with an offensive mind. Because once again, everybody's looking at Kansas City, everybody's looking at the Rams, everybody's looking at Chicago, and trying to find like that next coach, whoever that may be. The situation in Tampa, I mean, that was just a mess down there. Carter's, I think he's a good offensive coach. I definitely think he'll get a coordinator job really soon. That's no question. I can see him possibly being a coordinator in Green Bay, whoever gets that job. Especially if a defensive coach gets that job in Green Bay, I can see them getting Dirk Cutter.
Deshaun Jackson has said that he wants out of Tampa Bay. When you hear that, is it more of a referendum on the coach, the GM, or the quarterback?
I think it was definitely a quarterback because once Jameis took over, Deshaun's production went down. Early in the year when Ryan Fitzpatrick was in there throwing for 400 yards, a lot of that was going to Deshaun.
True.
He had a great relationship with Deshaun. For example, him wearing his outfit to the press conference that one day.
Yep.
And then you have Ryan Fitzpatrick saying this is this is a quarterback's dream. This offense is. And then when they went to Deshaun Jackson and asked him what he thought, he was like, "You got to roll with the hot hand between who should start." He said, "Right now this offense has been rolling with Ryan. You got to go with the hot hand."
So Cutter is out. Deshaun Jackson wants out. What do you do with Jameis Winston?
It's funny with Jameis because he has these moments where he keeps buying himself time, where he throws gorgeous passes and he's making unbelievable plays.
Under pressure. Like he's bringing them back in games.
Yeah, under pressure. That's what I liked about him at Florida State. And then coming into the NFL, I'm like, okay, this guy, he has like that one tangible where, put it all on me. When it matters, I'm going to go get it done. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, his situation is his off-field maturity and just his maturity in general. I think once he grows up and matures and that can meet his ability.
Well, see, that's the thing. There is the off the court or off the field. And I feel as if maybe he's turned a corner on that. I'd like to think he's turned a corner on that. But then there's maturity on the field too. And there's still times where I don't see that. He just has to make more prudent decisions. You don't always have to be going for it. I mean, there's situations where you risk it because the game's on the line and
right, because your team needs it.
You have to go for it. It just seems like there's a lot of situations where he goes for it and it's not worth the risk in that moment. That there's no off switch to that.
Because he's athletic and he has the arm. He has a big arm. He feels like he can try stuff way, way too much and he ends up getting himself in trouble. We saw that on Hard Knocks a couple years ago.
Yeah.
He always got himself in trouble by trying to do way too much. Just do what is required.
Right.
And the proof is in the pudding. Just look what Ryan Fitzpatrick did.
Right. And look, when he came back, after watching Ryan Fitzpatrick, not just once, but twice, watching the success that Fitzpatrick has had, because he had it last year too, I would think that message would have been delivered if it's going to be delivered. And I hate giving up on a guy. I hate thinking that a guy can't, flip the switch, the light won't come on and he can get it. I've seen too many guys that you bury and then they finally get it, and all of the talent that you saw there comes to fruition. But I'm just at that point where I'm beginning to doubt, like, how many examples of how to do it does he need right in front of him at this level for it to click?
Right.
All right. A couple other things I wanted to get to. By the way, I don't know if you saw the play that Jarvis Landry made. This was the most interesting part of the run at the end in the Browns-Ravens game, is that there was one spectacular catch after another, and they had to go to instant replay on each one of them to determine if they really were a catch or not. And what I appreciated is that in one sense, they finally got it right, which was if there was doubt, they went toward giving it a catch. There was a toe tap on the sideline, which I'm still not sure if, I think it was Jarvis Landry, got both feet down.
I think it was Higgins, I believe it was.
Okay, you're right.
Yeah.
It was Higgins and it was Landry on the other one, which was quietly maybe one of the most amazing athletic plays I've seen. We've seen more dramatic ones, but that he was fully extended and was able to bring it in and keep his hand underneath the ball, one-handed, land, roll, and never lose control of the ball. I mean, We've seen some amazing catches.
Right.
That to me was just from a sheer athletic.
Well, his awareness.
Yes.
His awareness to not only grab the ball, but okay, if it bobbles and if the ball touches the grass,
yes,
then it's going. He knows that.
Yeah, he's in mid-flight and he's curling his hand underneath the ball so that he's not pinning it. It was sensational. But I loved on the toe tap. I'm still not sure if he got both down. I'm not sure anybody is. But it was so good.
Right.
I'd rather, and I know probably talking to a former DB, your mindset is to go the other way.
No,
but dude, I want a play like that rewarded rather than we're going to dissect it to the point we're going to find a way to say that it wasn't good. I'd rather
let's find a way where it was caught, because there was a lot of catches this year. There was the DeAndre Hopkins between the legs, where they said he didn't catch that one.
Yep.
And then there was one actually in college, Oklahoma, with the kid CD, number 2, the receiver. He caught. I mean, it was probably after Odell's. It was probably the best catch I've ever seen in a long time. And they said his was out of bounds as well too. Reward these kids, like you said. Look for ways to make it complete. I guess it depends on who's challenging it, right?
I guess. But I'm glad that they're rewarding those rather than going the other way. If there's any tweak that they've made, I feel as if that's concerted. They've made a concerted. They talked about at the beginning that they were going to make a concerted effort to let it stand. If there wasn't indisputable evidence, then they were going to let it stand. Is there any matchup when it comes to the playoffs going in that catches your fancy the most? Like the one
Dallas, Seattle. Dallas, Seattle, hands down. That's going to be a battle. That's going to be awesome. You got 2 offenses that can run the ball. You have 2 very mobile, capable, determined quarterbacks. You have 2 underrated defenses at the beginning of the year that no one really looked at and who are scrappy. I mean, they're very, very similar teams, except the fact that actually I can't even say that because I was going to say they have Amari Cooper in Dallas, but Tyler Lockett has been balling for Seattle as well too. So this is going to be a battle, and you got Chris Rashad has a chance to call plays against his former team in Seattle. It's going to be cool, man. I'm excited for that one already.
Do you think that the Ravens can do anything?
My 2 teams I thought were the scariest teams in the playoffs if they got in is Seattle and Baltimore.
Right.
Because right now Baltimore has shown that they can win games defensively. And when as a defense, when you see and you prove to yourselves that you can win games on defense, not to say like they're productive on offense and they're running the ball extremely, extremely well and doing well. But on defense, they're able to create turnovers, they're able to score points, they're able to get great field position. When they're able to see that, and what helps them see that is that they have, veterans all over the room. Starting with Suggs, and then you go to Mosley, and then the back end, you got Jimmy Smith, you got Weddle and Jefferson. You have all these veterans around, including with the young guys who are there. You have guys who have played in big games, guys who have had lots of success, and they're talking about it in that room. So right now that team is so focused, and not only that, they support and they back Lamar Jackson as the team's quarterback. And so as a team, they're playing really well. Just like I thought with Seattle, as a team, they're playing extremely well.
You'd have to go with Seattle in this instance, though, because of the Russell Wilson factor. Would you not? Seahawks, Cowboys, I see a vast difference in the 2 quarterbacks. And before you answer that, what did you make of Dak Prescott playing as much as he did today?
I think that was actually a brilliant idea. The fact that for them to sit Zeke, keep him healthy, because that's the one that makes everything go, and just let Dak go out there and play the game without Zeke. We don't have the run game today. You can't just throw him a little 2-yard pass and he takes it 20 yards. None of that. Go out there and just play, get in the rhythm. And he threw for over 380, and it was such a huge momentum swing for him going into the playoffs because he moved around the pocket, threw a game-winning pass. Did all kinds of things that you want to see from Dak. Dak is very, very athletic and very, very mobile. So let him be himself. And that's what he was today. So I think it was really, at first it's like, man, he doesn't really need to, but then again, he actually did need to, now that you think about it. So it was really, really cool to see him do that and to have momentum going into the playoffs next week.
One of the teams that did not make it, and a man that you know well, Tom Coughlin, made news a little bit with Leonard Fournette, their running back, and TJ Yeldon, neither one of whom played today. But Mr. Coughlin did not like their demeanor on the bench, not appearing to be very attentive to the game, and unsolicited put out a statement about that he thought that they were unprofessional. What do you make of that circumstance?
Well, he's not wrong because, for one, Fournette got voted captain. And not only was he a captain, but that was just one of the many things that he's done this year that is out of character of a team captain.
Right.
For example, like starting that fight. You want to be tough, but you can show toughness a different way. Like these are the two guys that have been here for a while so far. So to show that yeah, the season's over, but you can't show that. He doesn't. One thing Coughlin does not like, he does not like quitters. That at the end of the day, there's always something to play for. There is always something to play for. Because sitting on that bench right there, that's part of your resume. That's part of your brand. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, that's who we are when things aren't going to go our way. We're going to sit there and just pout and just like, whatever, season's over, there's nothing that matters. That's not true. You always have something to play for. Every day is an interview. Every day, you're putting stuff on your resume. Like I said, going back to the Swearinger thing. I know Swearinger, that's my dog. That's my guy. But you got to be smart. You can't go in there and talk about a coach or a staff member and not expect something to happen, regardless of how good you are.
Right.
And that's the same thing. So just playing for Coughlin in New York, he had captain meetings all the time. And those captains, they were Tuck, they were Eli, they were Chase Blackburn, they were Deion Grant, Osi Umenyiora, and these are freaking men. These are grown men who have so much pride. They lead, they are held to a higher standard, and they hold everyone else to a higher standard. And not at the end of the day, and it was cool because if there was an issue in the locker room, it did not get to Coughlin unless they did not have control of the issue. And 99% of the times, they had control of the issue.
What that situation tells me, too, is that there have been enough internal discussions. Like,
absolutely.
Coughlin wouldn't just jump out there and put this out on Front Street.
Because of this one situation.
Exactly. We've tried to do it in-house. We've tried it, like, we need to call you out. We publicly need to call you out and make this statement so that people understand where this is. We're going to put you under the microscope now. We're going to put you under a public microscope because our trying to handle it internally obviously has not worked.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. And it's tough, but when Coughlin's down there, his name is on the line. He put himself out there. He's helping him out, and he's like, hey, this is part of my resume, and let's go. Let's go. So I think Shah Khan did the right thing of bringing everybody back, to bring back Coughlin, bring back Caldwell, and bring back Marone for one more go around.
Because do you think a lot of changes are afoot now? What do you expect?
I think just a lot of evaluation. This offseason is going to be important in terms of a lot of meetings because you can't. Fournette he's an incredible running back, and you just can't quit on him. I think this is going to be a big offseason for him, maturation-wise and physically, because he did have the hamstring injury early, and that just makes me think, like, did he work out as hard as he needed to for him to have hamstring injuries early? I don't know, but it's going to be a big offseason for that. Obviously, we know they're going to address the quarterback situation, but there's going to be a lot of meetings because that team is too talented to not dominate every week all year. They're too talented not to. And if they're talented and they're not getting it done, that's because there's issues with leadership, there's issues maturity-wise, and those are the two things. And it looks like people they're losing control. I remember when Gus Bradley was down there were times where people said he lost control of trying to please Jalen Ramsey. He couldn't talk to him anymore because Jalen was too big, he was too popular. In practice, you had to wear black shorts. He came on in white shorts because he felt like it. They were Jordan brand, too. And Jordan doesn't sponsor the NFL. Nike does. Which, I mean, it's the same thing, but you know what I mean?
No, but they're different. They're competing.
Right. So, yeah, just stuff like that. So I know they're going to have a lot of meetings and try just get on the same page. Find some way, someone to have meetings like, hey, this is how we got it done. Maybe he brings in Justin Tuck. Maybe he brings in somebody who's seen it and done it. Because I'm telling you, man, we had some dudes, just straight grown men across the board. Shaun O'Hara was there. David Deal was there. Chris Nee, Chris Canty, Antrell Roll. All these were just, Brandon Jacobs, Amar Bradshaw. These are grown men, man. You know what I'm saying? These are real dudes. And you didn't say anything because everybody we argued every day in meetings. Every day. Because we're trying to figure it out. And then when we went on the field, it didn't even matter, man.
Right.
If there's an issue, if we got whooped, we got whooped together. Right. We went back to the drawing board and figured it out. If we won, that's because we all figured it out and we won together.
That's a special place. That's a special place to be.
It is.
Yeah, I agree. We normally exclusively talk about the NFL, and I do have one more question for you when it comes to the NFL. I want to get your take on a report that came out since we did our last podcast. But I also want to get a few things down since we're at the heart of the college football season with the semifinals and now the championship game set up between Alabama and Clemson. But before we get to that, I do want to ask you, there was a report that Matt Patricia is by a former Detroit Lion that is consistently late for meetings. I found that startling that any head coach would be late for meetings. I mean, how extraordinary is that? And what does that say to you about the Lions?
If that's true, that's tough because that's where it starts.
And you're also talking about somebody from the Bill Belichick tree, right?
Yeah, well, maybe he was early to Bill stuff. Maybe that's just not how he rolls. Maybe he's late to everything else, but when he was in the Patriots, he was early to all that stuff. Who knows? You know, there were times where I was early to football practice, but I was late to class.
Priorities.
You know, priorities, man. Exactly. What'd you major in? English? No, I majored in football.
All right. That's it for part 1 of this holiday special of Bucher and Blackmon. Don't forget to follow Will on Twitter at Will Blackmon and me at Rick Bucher. And you can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Bucher Friends. Now, in part 2, we're going to get Will's take on the semifinal games between Clemson and Notre Dame and Alabama and Oklahoma and who he sees winning it all. And did he see this matchup from the very beginning of the year as I did? We'll get all of that and more in part 2. Special part 2 college football edition of Bucher and Blackmon. Thanks for listening. Have a very safe New Year's Eve.